Most men don't realize this, and it's quietly reshaping their lives and their strength. While society tells them to stay, to fight, to invest endlessly in people who may never appreciate it, a growing number of modern men are walking away. They're leaving jobs that demand too much for too little, relationships that drain instead of fuel, friendships that offer drama instead of loyalty. And what happens next? That's where the Real story begins. It's not rebellion for the sake of ego. It's not bitterness or rage. It's an instinctive recalibration, a survival mechanism in a world that has made men invisible in ways most don't even notice. These men are discovering that saying no doesn't make them failures. It makes them stronger, sharper, and more in control of their lives than ever before. The problem begins quietly. Many men today face an invisible set of pressures, societal expectations, emotional labor in relationships, professional demands, and the constant pressure to appear successful, strong, and unshakable. These pressures accumulate over years, often decades, until the breaking point arrives. And when it does, the response isn't always subtle. Take, for example, Jason, a 38-year-old marketing executive. For 15 years, he invested in his career, his marriage, and his social circle. But each investment demanded more than he ever received in return. At work, promotions went to people who knew how to play politics rather than produce results. At home, his partner expected him to manage emotions, household logistics, and finances without acknowledgement. Friendships felt transactional. He gave but rarely received. Over time, Jason felt the frustration growing, an unspoken resentment building beneath the surface. The breaking point for many men looks like this: the moment when effort and appreciation no longer align. Relationships, career, and social circles begin to feel like obligations rather than partnerships. The emotional labor becomes invisible, the contributions unrecognized. Men start to realize that the world doesn't reward loyalty the way it claims. And that realization stings. Walking away isn't always dramatic. It can be subtle, declining extra responsibilities at work, ending a friendship that constantly drains, choosing solitude over social approval. But the internal struggle is real. Men are conditioned to endure, to sacrifice, to persist without complaint. Choosing to leave feels almost wrong at first. It triggers guilt, doubt, even shame. Yet paradoxically, these feelings are the exact reason walking away becomes transformative. When a man chooses himself over the demands of others, he begins to reclaim his time, energy, and focus. He discovers how much he was sacrificing to maintain appearances. And then the mind begins to shift. Anger and frustration turn into clarity. Pain becomes insight. Boundaries are no longer negotiable. They're necessary for survival. This phenomenon is increasingly visible in relationships. Many modern men feel trapped by expectations, emotional labor, household responsibilities, or navigating a partner's personal crises without reciprocity. The classic scenario: a man provides financial stability, emotional support, and effort in maintaining intimacy, while his partner demands more and more, often without recognition. The imbalance creates silent resentment, and eventually it sparks a decision: either continue in a cycle of frustration or walk away before being completely depleted. Consider Mark, a 42-year-old father of two. He had devoted years to a marriage that left him exhausted. Every conversation felt like a negotiation, every disagreement a test of patience. He loved his family, but he realized that the version of himself that existed before the constant compromises was disappearing. When Mark walked away, not from his family, but from the patterns that drained him, he found clarity he hadn't known in years. He could focus on his health, his goals, and his personal growth. Walking away wasn't about abandoning responsibility. It was about reclaiming his life. The workplace offers another parallel. Many men discover that corporate culture thrives on overcommitment and underappreciation. Projects that require excessive hours, emotional resilience, and constant adaptation are rewarded with little recognition. The expectation is endurance, the quiet acceptance of long hours, weekend work, and personal sacrifices. When a man decides to step back, to refuse to burn out, he often encounters criticism, social pressure, and sometimes outright hostility. Yet those who hold their boundaries experience an awakening. Productivity increases, creativity returns, and respect, self-respect first and foremost, is restored. The critical insight is this: walking away is not weakness, it is a measure of strength. The act itself signals an awareness of value, an understanding of what is worth investing energy into. Men are learning that true power is not in blind endurance, but in the ability to choose where to direct focus and effort. It's a paradox that surprises many. Those who were once overextended, frustrated, and resentful find themselves stronger and more respected after choosing themselves. Walking away isn't abandonment, it's recalibration. And the benefits are tangible: emotional stability, better health, sharper focus, and, importantly, a renewed sense of control over life. Yet, society rarely frames it this way. Media and cultural narratives often paint men who leave as selfish or irresponsible. But the reality is different. Leaving toxic dynamics, unbalanced relationships, and draining obligations is a step toward wisdom. It's the modern man's survival mechanism, and increasingly a secret to his growth. And here's the part most people don't talk about. The strongest men are not those who endure endlessly. They're the ones who recognize the signals, take decisive action, and commit to themselves first. Every story you'll hear from men walking away shares this pattern: recognition, hesitation, decision, transformation. In the next part, we'll explore detailed case studies of men who walked away from relationships, from workplaces, and from social pressures, and the lessons they learned. You'll see not only the emotional journey, but the practical outcomes that make these decisions life-changing. And trust me, what happens next might surprise you. Let's start with Alex, a 35-year-old software engineer. On the surface, Alex had everything: steady job, supportive friends, a loving partner. But beneath the surface, he felt the invisible drain of constant compromise. At work, he was expected to be available 24/7, handle tasks beyond his role, and absorb pressure from both management and clients. At home, emotional labor fell disproportionately on him: planning, listening, mediating, adjusting. His time was no longer his own. One evening, after another 14-hour workday, Alex sat in his car, parked in a quiet lot, and realized he didn't even remember what he wanted anymore. The burnout, the frustration, the constant giving, it had dulled his sense of self. And then he did something radical. He walked away, not impulsively, but deliberately. He set boundaries at work, started saying no to tasks that weren't his responsibility, and reclaimed hours he once spent catering to others. At home, he introduced honest conversations with his partner about mutual responsibility, without aggression or blame. What happened next surprised him. Rather than backlash, people respected him more. Colleagues adjusted, and his partner began to meet him halfway. Most importantly, Alex began to feel alive again. Walking away wasn't a sign of weakness. It was the catalyst for a better, more authentic life. Then there's Michael, a 40-year-old divorced father. Michael had spent years trying to maintain a marriage that was fundamentally unbalanced. His ex-wife relied on him for financial stability, emotional reassurance, and household management, but rarely reciprocated. Each attempt to balance the scales only left him exhausted and resentful. After years of trying, Michael made a conscious decision. He would walk away from the relationship dynamics that were harming him, even if it meant facing short-term discomfort. He took time for himself. He reconnected with hobbies, exercised, focused on his career, and rebuilt friendships that had been neglected. Over time, he noticed a profound shift. He was calmer, more confident, and less reactive. Michael's life didn't become perfect overnight. He still faced challenges, but he was finally navigating them on his own terms. The decision to step away gave him the clarity and strength he needed to rebuild his world with intentionality. Another example is David, a 37-year-old entrepreneur. David had poured years into a partnership that demanded total loyalty while offering little in return. The constant cycle of compromise had left him questioning his worth and abilities. One day, after a particularly draining board meeting, he realized he was living for others' expectations rather than his own goals. David chose to walk away from the partnership, despite the risk of financial loss and social judgment. The initial months were challenging: self-doubt, criticism from peers, and logistical difficulties. But David's life soon shifted in unexpected ways. Freed from the obligations that had sapped his energy, he launched a solo venture, rediscovered his creativity, and began forming partnerships aligned with his values. Walking away had been a necessary risk to reclaim his potential. Notice a pattern emerging. These men didn't leave recklessly. They left strategically. Each decision was preceded by careful observation, recognition of imbalance, and an understanding that continuing as before would lead to erosion of their identity and potential. Walking away wasn't abandoning responsibility. It was reclaiming agency. This transformation isn't limited to work or personal relationships. It extends to social circles, friendships, and even hobbies. Many men realize that toxic friendships, those that demand constant effort while offering little support, can be more damaging than beneficial. Saying no to these social obligations opens time and energy for genuine connections, growth, and self-investment. Consider the subtle but powerful story of Rob, a 39-year-old teacher. Rob had a friend group that thrived on drama and competition. Every meetup left him drained, criticized, or manipulated. Over time, Rob began skipping events, gently distancing himself, and investing in solo activities that fostered his personal growth. Friends noticed, some were offended, others adjusted, but Rob's life improved dramatically. He had more mental space, more energy, and a renewed sense of purpose. Across all these stories, a common thread emerges. Modern men are discovering that boundaries and strategic withdrawal are not signs of failure. They're paths to strength. Walking away often feels risky, uncomfortable, and counterintuitive, but the payoff is profound. Men who master this skill regain autonomy, mental clarity, and a stronger connection to their authentic selves. Here's a part nobody talks about: the internal recalibration that comes after walking away. Men begin to recognize their own value without external validation. They realize that effort is a currency that must be invested wisely, and that self-respect is non-negotiable. This shift fosters emotional resilience, sharper decision-making, and the ability to pursue meaningful relationships and opportunities rather than simply enduring whatever life imposes. And then something else happens. Opportunity starts to align naturally with intention. With energy no longer drained by obligations that don't serve them, men find themselves more present, more capable, and more respected. It's not luck. It's the consequence of walking away strategically, thoughtfully, and with purpose. This part of the journey is crucial. The men who walk away are not avoiding responsibility. They are redefining it. They learn to engage selectively, invest wisely, and preserve energy for endeavors that truly matter. The result is a stronger, more resilient man, capable of navigating life with control, insight, and confidence. After witnessing these stories, a clear insight emerges. Walking away is not about giving up. It's about prioritizing long-term value over short-term comfort. Modern men are learning to distinguish between obligation and choice, between depletion and growth, and between validation and self-respect. Take a closer look at Alex, Michael, David, and Rob. Each of them face societal expectations, personal guilt, and fear of judgment. Yet, the decision to step back, whether from work, relationships, or social groups, was transformative. Walking away allowed them to reclaim time, energy, and clarity. Most importantly, it offered perspective. a chance to identify what truly mattered and to invest in it meaningfully. Many men fail to see this initially. They feel trapped by responsibility, commitment, or societal standards. The fear of criticism, the discomfort of isolation, or the anxiety about lost opportunity can keep them locked in draining situations. Yet, the paradox is that staying often costs far more emotionally, mentally, and even financially than strategically walking away. The emotional triggers here are undeniable: frustration, anger, exhaustion, guilt. Each serves as a signal, highlighting areas of life where imbalance exists. For example, when Alex felt drained after a long day of work and constant obligations, it was his body and mind signaling that his energy was misallocated. Walking away was the corrective action that restored equilibrium. Another insight is the power of boundaries. Modern men are discovering that saying no isn't selfish, it's essential. Boundaries protect energy, focus, and emotional well-being. They allow men to operate from a place of choice rather than compulsion. Whether it's refusing extra workload, setting standards in relationships, or disengaging from toxic friendships, boundaries define where effort is productive and where it's wasted. Let's explore the internal transformation further. Walking away triggers a profound psychological shift. Men start to redefine their identity on their own terms, rather than through the lens of others' expectations. This self-redefinition cultivates confidence, resilience, and emotional intelligence. It also fosters clarity, the ability to recognize opportunities that align with purpose, rather than settling for what is convenient or familiar. Here's the subtle but critical lesson. The strength gained from walking away is cumulative. Each act of self-preservation reinforces the next. For example, when David successfully exited a draining partnership, the confidence and lessons gained allowed him to navigate future challenges with greater acuity. Each successful boundary, each intentional withdrawal, compounds, building a stronger foundation for life's next stage. Modern men also gain strategic insight. Walking away reveals patterns previously unnoticed, the hidden costs of relationships, the hidden expectations of social circles, and the subtle ways energy is drained. Awareness of these patterns allows men to engage deliberately, invest wisely, and avoid repeating mistakes. They learn not just to survive, but to thrive by aligning actions with personal goals rather than external pressures. Moreover, there's a societal implication. Modern men walking away challenge outdated norms about sacrifice, endurance, and male obligation. By choosing themselves first, they model a new form of masculinity, one rooted in emotional intelligence, intentional living, and long-term strategy. They demonstrate that strength isn't measured by suffering quietly, but by acting courageously, even when uncomfortable. Consider the metaphor of a dam. When a man stays in draining situations, he is like water behind a blocked dam. Pressure builds, energy stagnates, and eventually, the system risks collapse. Walking away releases the flow, allowing energy to circulate freely. This metaphor highlights the transformative power of self-directed withdrawal. It isn't passive, it's dynamic, and it revitalizes life. Another critical insight is the reframing of success. Men who walk away start to measure achievements differently, not just by external markers like income, status, or approval, but by internal markers: peace, clarity, alignment with values, and sustainable growth. They realize that effort without return is a silent tax on life itself. By walking away, they optimize where and how effort is spent, maximizing return on investment for their most precious resource: energy. The psychological effect also extends to relationships. Men who have walked away develop stronger intuition about human behavior. They recognize patterns of manipulation, imbalance, and transactional dynamics more quickly. This insight allows them to cultivate healthier, more mutually beneficial relationships. They no longer chase validation or approval. They attract it naturally through authenticity and self-respect. Walking away also fosters resilience. Life is unpredictable, and setbacks are inevitable. Men who practice strategic withdrawal develop mental fortitude, the ability to handle rejection, change, and uncertainty without being destabilized. This resilience becomes a force multiplier, enhancing both personal and professional outcomes. Finally, the ultimate reward is freedom. Freedom from emotional drain, freedom from societal pressure, and freedom from misaligned commitments. This freedom allows men to act intentionally, pursue meaningful goals, and cultivate relationships that genuinely nurture their growth. Walking away is not about abandoning responsibility. It's about assuming it on terms that actually serve life rather than diminish it. In summary, the insight is clear. Walking away strategically is a modern man's tool for empowerment. It fosters clarity, autonomy, emotional resilience, and strategic advantage. It requires courage, reflection, and discipline, but the payoff is profound. Men who master this approach gain not just strength, but a renewed sense of self, purpose, and possibility. Now it's time to reflect. Think about your own life. Were you overcommitting? Which obligations drain your energy without meaningful return? Which relationships, work dynamics, or social pressures silently erode your sense of self? Walking away isn't about avoidance, it's about clarity. It's about identifying what truly deserves your time, energy, and attention. It's about creating space for personal growth, authentic connections, and meaningful achievements. Ask yourself, are you living by default or by design? Are you choosing your life or reacting to others' expectations? The difference is subtle but profound. Men who walk away intentionally reclaim control over the narrative of their lives. They no longer expend energy on what cannot be changed or on what does not serve them. Here's the challenge. Take inventory. Identify one area of life where withdrawal could create opportunity. Maybe it's a toxic friendship, an unbalanced romantic dynamic, or a professional role that saps your energy. Reflect on the cost of staying versus the potential reward of stepping away. And then act. Begin with small, deliberate boundaries. Say no when appropriate. Reclaim your time. Invest in yourself. Each small act compounds, building momentum, confidence, and resilience. Share your experiences. Comment below with moments where you chose yourself over obligation. Let's create a conversation where men can learn from one another's strategic withdrawals, successes, and challenges. Remember, walking away is a sign of strength, not weakness. It is a tool for self-preservation, empowerment, and growth. It allows you to navigate life on your own terms, align with purpose, and cultivate resilience in an increasingly demanding world. Finally, reflect on this. Strength isn't measured by how much you endure silently. It's measured by how intentionally you navigate life, how wisely you invest energy, and how courageously you prioritize your long-term well-being. Walking away is not just a decision. It's a declaration of agency, a reclamation of power, and a pathway to a stronger, more fulfilled version of yourself.